In times of the supernatural and fiction folklore, the werewolf was a widespread concept during the medieval times. People used the supernatural and fiction folklore for unexplainable events. Also, the spread of Christianity was very popular during this time, and this had a huge influence on the supernatural. People who were Christians viewed other religions as dangerous because they believed it was a form of satanic instruments, and they believed any other religion other than theirs was satanic. Another thing that we see during this time is people claiming demonic possession, and one example of this would be the story of Briggs in the article The Classic Accuser. In this story, Briggs misunderstood a sermon because usually the sermons around this time were harping on Satan's power and how he could have witches inflict demons on other people. Well, Briggs actually misunderstood a sermon, and he believed that he was a hopeless reprobate, that he was a sinner, and he believed there was a demon inside him. And usually in the case of demonic possession, people usually blame others for inflicting a demon on them. Also, courts were very receptive to this idea because receptive to these accusations because they believed that witches were the only people who had the power granted by Satan to inflict demons on others. Werewolves were also associated with witchcraft and demons, which is why we see them develop in parallel to witches. Also, a lot of werewolf came up in the trials of witches, but we really see werewolves come about in witch Sabbats, which is a gathering which Christians believe to be a form of devil worshipping. These supposed gatherings, witches would have to travel long distances, and witches were believed to be shapeshifters. They could also turn other people into animals or objects. One demonic animal that is recorded is like a werewolf. There are also other animals, but this is where the werewolf really comes about. Another way, as mentioned before, is witches could perform magic and curse people. And it was said that at the end of the Sabbath, the devil would send witches home to perform magic on their Christian neighbors. And some types of things that witches could inflict on people were illnesses, mental disorders, and they would also kill livestock, and different things like that, which the killing of livestock could also be a cause of the werewolves. And then another reason the accusation of werewolves came about was because there were actual recorded evidence of wolves being around during this time. However, we do not know if they were savage wolves, but the Europeans hated the wolves because they mutilated livestock and killed them. They were also very dangerous to humans, and they feared the attacks on humans. And the attacks of the actual wolves led to this belief of werewolves. Not only did people fear being attacked by werewolves, but they also feared turning into a werewolf. One way it was believed that you could turn into a werewolf is by stripping off all your clothes and using a magic ointment and rubbing it all over the body. Another way you could turn into a werewolf is by sleeping under a full moon on a Wednesday or Friday summer night. They also believed that if you wore wolf skin, that would change you into a werewolf as well. Usually in the medieval times, they believed it to be a belt in most recorded instances. Sadly, the hysteria and fear of wolves led to the death of many people who were innocent. And we see these werewolf trials emerge in the early 15th century, but it really reached its peak in the 17th century. 3 reported cases I found to be very interesting. Michael Verdon and Pierre Bergot, they were seen as a pack of werewolves. They eventually confessed with making a pact with the devil and using a magic ointment to turn into werewolves. However, this confession was due to torture. We do not know if this is actually true. Another case is the werewolf of Doyle, and he actually confessed to hunting and killing children, and then he would actually eat them, and he claimed to, share the meat with his wife. So he kind of also threw his wife under the bus, but this could also be seen as a form of cannibalism. The most infamous case is the werewolf of Bedburg. Peter Strump was accused of being a serial killer, cannibal, and rapist. However, these were kind of one of those unexplainable events, so they couldn't really accuse him of these accusations during this time. But there were several victims found mutilated, and some bodies were never found, and some of their body parts were actually eaten, or they were, gone, disappeared. And it all started with the disappearance of livestock. So farmers started hunting for this wolf, and Peter's neighbors actually were the ones who accused him of being a werewolf. They claimed to have followed a wolf and cornered him. However, once they cornered the wolf, they saw Peter remove his belt and change back into his human form. After some torture, he confessed to all these heinous crimes. Turns out he had killed 13 children, one being his firstborn son, and he actually ate his firstborn son's brain. He also targeted pregnant women, 2 in particular, where he was accused of ripping out the fetus and eating it, as well as eating their hearts. Again, he mutilated numerous livestock, and he was also accused of incestuous relationships. One was with a family member. Some accounts say it was a sister, some say it was a distant relative, but another family member he was with was his daughter, and he actually got her pregnant. And right here we see the story I just told you about his neighbors hunting him. This is Peter causing all the mutilations in the town, his neighbors hunting him, and then they eventually find him, and he turns back into his human form. And then this is him being tried by the inquisitors. And here, this is a form of punishment. They would tie you to a wheel, and they would poke you and beat you. And since he was accused of these incestuous relationships, the relative, sister or distant, was also burned, and so was his daughter for being impregnated by her father. They actually beheaded him and burned his body, as well as the bodies of these 2 women. And this was a very popular form of punishment for the werewolves and witches during this time. But we see a lot of similar details in these cases. It can be viewed as, these men were serial killers, cannibals, and rapists. However, medieval people were not aware of these crimes during this time. Another explanation is mental disorders, and there are three major mental disorders that can be explained for werewolves. One is called hypertrichosis, the other one is porphyria, and the last one is lycanthropy. The first condition is where there's an abnormal amount of hair growth all over the body and the face. It's also known as werewolf syndrome, which you can see from this picture why a person would be accused of a werewolf for looking this way. And then the next disease, porphyria, it's a sensitivity to light. And it can cause like skin lesions, mostly found on the hand, nose, ears, and face. It can really mutilate the face. It can also cause your skin to change pigments, such as brown color, and it can turn your teeth red or reddish brown. And here are some examples of this disease. And then the last condition, which is actually mostly a mental disorder, is where a patient believes they're actually a werewolf and they can either turn into a werewolf and they behave like one. And I actually have a video from 2010 that shows this is.
We've got 10 nights until the next full moon, but already there have been sightings of these creatures around San Antonio.
Yeah, those creatures are teen wolves, and as Ken Spy Showcon reports, they haunt our high schools. School's out at John Marshall High, but this could be any school. And with any school come the cliques too. Cheerleaders, nerds, jocks, and goths. But lately, we've tailed another group on and off campus, literally.
We're not to be feared.
It's not emo, and it's not goth. It's, well, more animal than that. Meet members of the Wolf Pack, one of several packs scattered about San Antonio's north side.
We're not a gang at all. Like, gangs are posers. They just want attention. That's why they go on tags and stuff. The pack, we're family. Like, we go to each other for our problems.
And yes, they sometimes meet under a full moon. That is, if mom and dad let them out of the house.
We're here.
Yeah.
The fascination with werewolves dates back to the night.
And one quote from an article I found was that all of these symptoms can obviously cause a fear-ridden community, that to them, all these symptoms only had one explanation: werewolves.